All right, it's your girl Michelle Pierre. I am back with Espresso Unicorn, and we are back to our podcast of Black Voices for our February series. And I have the distinct pleasure to have Tracey Lloyd, Miss Tracey Lloyd in the house. I know y'all may not know that name yet, but you will know that name. She is the Vice President and General Manager of Starboard LVMH, and she is a powerhouse. And so, Tracey, thank you so much for being here with us today and being on our podcast, Black Voices.
Thank you, Michelle, for having me.
Of course. And so, I'm not going to belabor the time. I want us to jump right into it because I know you have some phenomenal things to share with our audience. And so first off, let us know a little bit about you. So about your life, your family, your job, anything that that you kind of want to share with us.
Absolutely. So I grew up in a single parent home. My father actually raised all three of us. So my parents separated when I was 8. And my younger brother was 2, my sister was 10, and my father took it all on his shoulder and did the best that he could with raising us. And so to this day, I am a daddy's girl and just super grateful for, all the hard work and effort things that he did in raising us. And so I will tell you, when I look back, I know that my grit, my passion, my focus, that all comes from my father. And so, from there, Milwaukee, Wisconsin is where I grew up, attended West Point, went into the military, got out at the rank of captain. And from there, I went into corporate America, specifically in the retail sector. By the age of 30, I was running a $500 million business for Walmart. From Walmart, I went on to Bloomingdale's as a vice president, general manager of their business, and then into J.C. Penney's, where I had the absolute pleasure, Michelle, of working for a Black CEO. I've never had that opportunity. And my immediate boss was Black female, Sorora, AKA. And it was like Wakanda for me. And so, that was probably one of the most nurturing, well, not probably, was the most nurturing time in my career. And I learned so much about myself and how to show up as a Black woman in corporate America. Just so many learnings there. And I will tell you, the CEO at the time was Marvin Ellison, and I just owe him so much for just allowing me to experience corporate America in a way where it felt like I understood what it felt like to be part of the good old boy crew, right? Like, we have to take a certain amount of our focus and put it to managing the arrows, the snares, the traps, right? I didn't have to worry about that. And I had to just I got the luxury of putting my 100% undivided attention into just moving the business forward. And it was amazing what I was able to accomplish because I had the support of my boss and as well as the CEO. So that experience I will always take with me. And he then went on to Lowe's because a great opportunity arose for him. And I then went to Starboard, which is a Moet Hennessy Louis Vuitton Maison, where I now manage cruise line retails. And so, for instance, if you're on a ship and there's retail, whether it's Cartier or Tiffany or any of those stores that are on the cruise line ships, 9 times out of 10, that's my team that's running the retail out of those shops.
All right. Wow. Wow. So a few things that I want to pull apart.
Mm-hmm.
So you told us that you are a West Point grad. How was your experience being a Black female at West Point? And what year did you graduate?
Sure, Michelle. So I graduated in 2003, and my experience at West Point, I enjoyed it. I truly enjoyed it. It definitely was part of the minority. in coming into West Point. And let me rewind it even a bit further, Michelle. I remember when I told my counselor that I wanted to apply to West Point, and he told me that I was biting off more than I could chew, and that, you know, my father was a mechanic. The kids who attend West Point, their parents are like senators or ambassadors, heads of states of different countries, and that there's pretty much no way I was going to get into West Point. So you can understand that once I got into West Point, I was excited, I was on fire, and I made sure that everyone knew who Tracy at the time, Tracy Coleman was. I wasn't not going to allow the fact that my father didn't come, I didn't come from money. I wasn't going to allow that to make me, but intimidate me, basically. I wasn't going to allow that to intimidate me. I felt that I'd worked hard to get into West Point, and so therefore I knew I belonged, and I was going to try to make as big of a splash as possible. And therefore, my freshman year, I ran for class vice president, where I was regularly having meetings with, debriefing one-star general, the commandant. And so early on, I was able to get, FaceTime and understand what executive presence was. And West Point was huge in terms of how I show up today, in really, I would say the way that I show up today, a lot of that I attribute to my time at West Point and learnings, as well as the military.
So you said some great things there, and I want to go back to a statement about your counselor saying that you were biting off more than you could chew. And I want to hit on that because obviously this is during Black History Month, and we know the history of Black people and how Black people have been put in this space of being underestimated in the things that they can do and the things that people believe that their potential lies, right? And so I want to commend you first off for not listening to that counselor, and for, that young woman out there, that young man out there that may be listening to this. Don't listen to the naysayers. What is your heart telling you? And if it's not telling you to push forward and to work hard for those things that you're passionate about, I'm asking you right now to do so, and to think about this example that you hear through Miss Tracey Lloyd, because she very well could have taken the response from this counselor and her life would have been completely different, because someone else did not believe that she was capable or that she was suited for the attendance at West Point or any other, major thing that we're looking to do in our lives, right? So just make sure that you know who you are, and you don't let the naysayers delay you or distract you from your goals. And so thank you for that. Now, another thing that I want to hit and not stay on too long, and I want to say thank you too, because your dad, I mean, that was amazing. Often we don't hear about a lot of men out there doing the hard job with taking care of a family, and I commend him for that, and I commend him for just shaping you and your siblings into amazing humans at the end of the day. And with that, I guess I'll go to my last piece as it relates to your background, J.C. Penney's, and your first Black CEO that you worked for. And I love what you mentioned about you could just show up and you could move the company forward and not have to think about all of these different things that usually comes with being in a position, a minority type position, right? People looking at you sideways and all of these other things. And I just want to kind of pull that apart just a little bit more about that organizational support that you received from him. But also on top of that, how can you help people going into these spaces that they may be the minority and that they may not fit into the norms of that institution or that organization? How do you help them be successful within that space?
So I would say, Michelle, that it is so important. So the lesson that I learned from having that experience is the importance of being in an environment that's you. And I will tell you, when I was looking for this, when I was going into this new company, when I was interviewing them just as hard as they were interviewing me, Michelle. It was important to me, for me, that I landed in a place that I knew not only, you know, this background and they want to glean from those experiences, but it needed to be clear to me as well is that it was not going to be one sided. It wasn't just me giving, but just as I was giving to them, that they would be pouring into me. And I don't think that that's something we look for
Mm,
or often enough. And it's important because otherwise you're going to end up depleted, right? And so one of the lessons you learn early on, all money is not good money,
mm,
right? I had a great experiences with Walmart, and they paid me very well, but they took a lot out of me.
mm,
And so as you get older, you understand the value of your time, right? The value of relationships, right? No matter how much money you have, time is the one thing you can never buy more of or get it back, right? When it's done, it's done. And so you think differently in terms of how you use your time. Um, I will tell you that I will not give an organization um, my time, talents, treasures, any of that, right? If they aren't willing to pour into me and pour into people who look like me. And so for this particular, job, I asked the CEO point blank, uh, at the executive level, why were they not people who look like me? I asked those hard questions, right? And I would tell you, if I was not satisfied with the answers she gave me, I would have been ready to walk away right at that point. But and I would tell you that I'm grateful that I made the move to Starboard. It is a very inclusive. I mean, I've never worked for a female CEO. I mean, the CFO is a female, the chief merchant officer is a female, the chief marketing officer is a female. Like I've never been. So again, I'm finding myself in a different type of environment. But I would then again, I will go back to say that as you're interviewing with companies, make sure you're interviewing them just as hard as they're interviewing you, because you've got to assess fit, right? Because you could be, most likely you're qualified if they're reaching out to you in the first place, but what you should be assessing is a fit, a cultural fit, and ensuring that you're going to be supported, because every business has its difficult times, right? When you get to that level, you're going to be making so many calls in the gray, and it's important that you have a supportive team around you.
yeah, that's good. A cultural fit. All right. And I like that. All money is not good money. I'm going to say that one more time. All money is not good money. All right. I hope somebody takes that to heart. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for those words of wisdom. And, and as you were talking, I think I started hearing some of this, but I really want to get into what is Tracey's passions, right? And as it relates to your passions, how do you show up in these spaces?
I will tell you that I'm passionate about people in general, right? Regardless of race, religion, sexuality, like I am a people person. And but I always find myself being a champion of the underdog, right? And for me, and in as Black people, we're the underdog, and so I show up big for our people. I show up big, for instance, even at work, right? Like I unapologetically will seek out Black talent to mentor, to help them progress in their careers. When it comes to, right now I'm the chairman of National Black Arts, previously known as National Black Arts Festival. And it is all, our mission is about celebrating and educating around all, things Black art. And also within that, how do we help Black artists to stabilize, right? Especially during the pandemic. That was a time where it was so important, where our story was being told through our lens, right, out of our mouths. You think about all the social unrest that was happening during the beginning of the pandemic and so forth. We needed to get that captured by us. But if our artists are so worried in terms of how they're going to keep a roof over their head or how they're going to eat, how can they focus and capture these moments? And so for NBAF, we created an artist fund where we were able to give grants, small stipends out to Black artists all across the U.S. to help sustain them during the pandemic so that they could continue to focus on doing what they do, which is create and capture moments so that our story can be told properly from years to come. And so, again, I'm just passionate about all things Black. Of course, I say I'm passionate about people, but specifically when it comes to my people, I am even more passionate.
That's great. And that the stipend that you were able to give and the support you were able to give to Black artists, and we all know, if you live on this earth, the pandemic was not nice to the majority of us out here, and I can only imagine what was going on with artists during that time. But I'm so encouraged to actually see Black artists actually being recognized for their talents and actually being able to tell our story from our perspective, as well as let's get real, telling the true history of Black people. And so that's definitely a segue into a big question of, what does Black History Month mean to you?
Well, that's a beautiful segue. And I would tell you to just kind of dovetail off of what you just said, Michelle. There we have in America, we have a habit of this erasure, right, against Black contributions when it comes to America, right, and not just America, to the world. And so when I think about Black History Month, right, it's about honoring our ancestors, the change makers, the revolutionaries, those that we know, right, the well-knowns, and those that are unheard of or the forgotten. It also encourages us to recognize our past, evaluate our present, and, Michelle, plan for our future. And so we, when I think about, Black History Month, it's all those things, and it gives us the opportunity, to remind the world of Black impact, not just America, right? Because there's no American history without the African American history, just like there's no world history without, African history. And so that gives us the opportunity to just remind, the world about our impact, and then also amongst the, African diaspora, just for us to celebrate, our greatness, past, current, and then, what the future, what's ahead of us.
I like that. You went international on us. That's beautiful. Because a lot of times, and especially as we think about the US of A, we specifically speak in this realm of Black people in America. But this is, as we think about telling the true story, as we think about appreciating and valuing Black people, it's not just an issue in America. It's an issue across the globe of Black people being devalued based off of some I would say some caste systems that were set in place that were all built on lies. And so thank you so much for taking it into that realm, because I think a lot of times we just forget. We forget, and some of it is just because, as my mom would say, sweep around your own front door, right, before you try to sweep around mine. So going back to, some spiritual stuff. But at the end of the day, it's more so we get so focused on just that immediate of what's happening with us that we miss what's happening on a greater scale, because we're so stuck in this micro realm.
Well, when you look at, the cradle civilization was what, lower Mesopotamia, which is kind of like modern day Iraq, Iran, that area. But quickly, right after that, when you look at, civilization and where it grew, it was up and down the Nile. That's Africa,
Mm.
right?
Yes.
So, we again, there's no world history without first talking about Africa. And so, I just, but again, we talked again, it goes back to that whole part about erasure, right? And it's funny because even when President Ford, who recognized Black history, right, he was the first to recognize from a president standpoint celebrations. What was it? It was during the United States bicentennial celebration when President Ford recognized Black history. But he said it needed to be recognized so that we could remember, Black contributions to America, because oftentimes we like to forget or, devalue it. So he even knew what was happening and was like, we got to put a stop to it. And this is why, I'm putting my pen on it and really validating it. Even though before that, what is it, maybe 6 years before that was the official, it was in Kent State. Most people don't know that Black History Month kicked off at Kent State in 1970. And it wasn't until 6 years later that that's when President Ford he solidified it and really made it a thing. So yeah.
Look at you dropping those knowledge bombs on us and all that history. Thank you for that. And honestly, thank you for being with us today. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. Thank you for sharing your story with us. And I hope somebody out there got something out of this, because I know I did. And it was just a pleasure to have you on our show, our podcast, Black Voices, during Black History Month for Espresso Unicorn. And so if I can ask one last thing, if there's something that you have in your heart that if people who are listening to this today take nothing else away, what is it that you want to leave with the audience?
It would be something that my pastor said to me years ago, and I really feel like it changed my trajectory. And it was something real simple. He said, free yourselves from the opinion of others. And I believe once you do that, it's just amazing how free and open you are, and it makes you more fearless. So if I don't leave y'all with anything else, just free yourselves from the opinions of others and do the work in unearthing and understanding who you are as a person and why you were put on this earth. So look for your passion. Thank you, Michelle, for having me.
Of course, of course. Well, folks, that is all we have today for our podcast. Please make sure that you get online on the gram. We're on Espresso Unicorn. The podcast will air on the 23rd of February, which is tomorrow. So make sure that you're looking out for it. And thank you so much for joining us and just being a part of the Unicorn family. Also, make sure you follow us on Spotify too. And it's also under Espresso Unicorn. All right, y'all, take care. Michelle Pierre, I'm out of here. Bye.